The year is 2022 and Dan Forrester, Chris Pratt, is an ex-military man teaching high school biology, trying to make sense of his life. He's a husband to wife Emmy, Betty Gilpin, and father to young Murray, Ryan Kira Armstrong, living in a quaint suburban lifestyle, keeping his distance away from his estranged father, James, J.K. Simmons. One day, soldiers from the year 2051 arrive, presenting the inhabitants of Earth with a warning that the world is on the verge of being overrun by unknown creatures called white spikes and that their future is doomed. To help prevent this coming disaster, a draft is instituted, with the selected implanted with an armband helping to link them to their time. Sent into the future to battle hostile creature invaders of 2051. Of those individuals selected, Dan is one of them to make the jump into the future. Making a friend in fellow scientist Charlie, Sam Richardson, while finding survival tips from future war vet Dorian, Edwin Hodge. Arriving in Miami 2051 during a major battle, Dan quickly finds his place in the brutal war, connecting with Commander Forrester, Yvonne Strahovski, who's working on a special toxin that's capable of decimating the white spikes populace once and for all. However, Dan's situation becomes more involved than he can ever imagine. Just like what Hulk says in Avengers: Endgame. Time travel. Yes, I do love a good time travel narrative. Especially how a person, or group, travels up or down the stream of time to visit, change sequence of events, for better or worse, which can cause alternative realities to form or the whole butterfly effect. Yes, I'll admit that I am a bit of nerd when it comes to this type of stuff, so I enjoy that. As I said, the concept of time travel has been quite a useful narrative mechanic for a multitude of narratives out there, with some being better than others and or more throughout. Within the video game realm, I would say that Chrono Cross and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time are some prime examples, while shows like Doctor Who and Outlander cater to some great examples found in the TV venue. Within the cinematic realm, the concept of time travel is there and, as I said, can be dealt with in a good manner, but if those mechanics are further explained, followed, or presented within a solid narrative. Perhaps the best example, at least to me, is the example would either have to derive from the Terminator franchise or the Back to the Future trilogy, both of which cater to the time travel concept and create their own governing laws of which the movie's story follows through on. Overall, the idea of time traveling is a good one, and I think Hollywood, and several other mediums, have found its surreal and fictitious idea to me back around to talking about The Tomorrow War, a 2021 sci-fi action feature film. To be honest, I really didn't hear much about this movie until a month or two prior to its release. I think I did hear vague notion of actor Chris Pratt playing a lead role in an upcoming sci-fi movie, but that was pretty much it. Heck, even the film's trailers weren't released until somewhat close to when the movie was set to be released. There just wasn't a whole lot of buzz for the movie, so it kind of went under my radar. I think I kept hearing more about it on Instagram, as I do follow Pratt on there, and he was heavily promoting the upcoming film constantly. So, naturally, I decided to check out the film's trailer, and I do have to say that I was somewhat intrigued by it. I wasn't completely blown away by it, but it definitely held my curiosity to actually see the movie. With its sci-fi concept, futuristic time travel, and with Chris Pratt in the main role, it certainly had the makings of a sci-fi blockbuster and was on the verge of being released theatrically, with an original schedule date set for December 25, 2020, Christmas Day 2020, by Paramount Pictures. However, due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the movie was delayed. Shuffled to July 23, 2021. After that, Amazon bought the distribution rights to the movie from Paramount, with The Tomorrow War finally settling on July 2, 2021, on Amazon Prime Video, switching the film from being released theatrically to a streaming. I do remember when the movie initially came out and I did watch the film a week after its release. However, due to my busy work schedule, I kept on pushing doing my review for the movie. Now, I finally have some free time to share my thoughts on this film. Is it worth seeing? Well, not really. Despite having an interesting concept and some blockbuster flair to its action, The Tomorrow War never truly comes into its own, wallowing as a generic, middling sci-fi endeavor that feels predictable and formulaic in almost all aspect. Like one character says in the movie, "We are literally on borrowed time." The Tomorrow War is directed by Chris McKay, whose previous directorial works include several TV shows like Moral Oral, Titan Maximum, and Robot Chicken, as well as the feature animated film The Lego Batman Movie. Given his attraction to more slapstick and comedic endeavors, it does seem like an odd choice that McKay would want to do a project like The Tomorrow War, which is more of a sci-fi action feature. Regardless of that decision, he is the director, and I do think that the movie does have some good redeeming qualities that the director chooses to make. Perhaps the most interesting one is that overall concept of the film's story, with McKay staging the opening 25 minutes in a very interesting way, presenting the narrative of the film's plot with its soldiers from the future idea and the war that is to come. The time travel aspect is kind of unique, and it definitely pulled me into the movie's first act, as well as the film's main antagonist threat of the White Spikes, which are more creature-like than generic alien-esque foes from sci-fi. In addition, McKay creates a morality and purpose also found at this particular point of the story, shown in the feature's main character of Dan Forrester, which does make for a compelling character arc. Where the movie actually truly shines the best, and where McKay's direction proves to be the most effective, is in the first really big action sequences towards the end of the first act, or is it the beginning of the second act? I can't remember exactly. Anyway, this particular scene is executed quite well and delivers the right number of thrills, suspense, action, and visuals that anyone could ask for. I think McKay truly did nails this part beautifully. There are some other effective action sequences that McKay does stage throughout the movie, which does offer some good sci-fi action bits here and there, but nothing is compared to this particular scene. Overall, I do have to give some credit towards McKay for what he was able to accomplish with this movie, for better or worse. For its presentation, The Tomorrow War is decent enough and has its moments where the movie shines. That being said, the movie is somewhat stuck between blockbuster film endeavor and a TV movie look, which is a bit strange as the project has a production budget $200 million. As a whole, the movie itself looks fine and showcases plenty of large-scale sequences that is fitting a sci-fi action endeavor. However, I think the bloated production budget doesn't exactly match what's presented on screen. Sure, stuff looks slick, clean, and well detailed, but not so much to warrant such a hefty price tag. I just can't see it. It just doesn't push that cinematic envelope to make such a large spending as well as that large-scale blockbuster feeling. Still, regardless of that fact, The Tomorrow War looks well done, and it's clear that attention to detail is well represented, especially during some of the action set pieces. Thus, the features behind-the-scenes team, including Peter Wenham, production design, and Beecham, set decorations, for making the film's setting, scenery looks appealing, be a worn-torn city or a futuristic lab. Cinematography efforts by Larry Fong are also effective in the film. Nothing to complete, wow, over. But Fong's technique for cinematics certainly suffices for a few pocket moments of brilliance here and there. The same can be said for the film's visual effects, which do lend a hand for some of the more action sequences. Again, it's nothing per se new in breaking new ground in this particular field. But it gets the job done and doesn't have poor effect blemishes. Heck, I do have to say that I was pretty intrigued over the design and rendering of the white spike. Lastly, the film's score, which was composed by Lorne Balfe, is perhaps one of the better aspects in the Tomorrow War's technical presentation. Finding the soundtrack to stirring and compelling during its quieter moments and very dramatic and bombastic within its louder, action-packed sequences. While it's not one of my favorite Balfe scores produced, it is definitely a solid musical composition, and I do appreciate it. Unfortunately, The Tomorrow War isn't all what it cracks up to be and ends up being more of middling endeavor rather than a true blockbuster popcorn feature. Perhaps the best way to sum up the feature is that is, more or less, an unremarkable endeavor that plays up the standard tropes of the large-scale sci-fi narrative. As a whole, the movie itself doesn't quite feel as powerfully impactful as a cinematic feature film. I know that's hard to say, but let me try to explain. The story of the Tomorrow War is sort of good, with a very strong start within its premise, as mentioned above, but then after the beginning of the second act, the film starts to slow down and becomes somewhat generic and basically loses steam within its own story plot, which is gravely disappointing. In addition, the movie's narrative gets bogged down with classic stereotypes of sci-fi gallery and hand-wavy dialogue explanations of how things are happening. The result is something a bit muddy and clunky, with the feature's story ending more on a whimper than a razzmatazz bang. Plot points are overshadowed and left dangling, some ideas never are truly panned out correctly. Twists are left moot and predictable, and the list goes on and on. True enough, tropes and clichés can be overlooked within a movie's story. But everything else about the project needs to stand out: setting, characters, action, visuals, etc. Unfortunately, The Tomorrow War doesn't and languishes within mediocrity. There is a lot of potential that the film's story has, but none of it comes to fruition and instead chooses for something rather bland and redundant nuances that hinder the plot of the film rather than strengthening. In conjunction with this idea, the film's script is rather flat and thinly sketched out. Penned by Zach Dean, the feature's script, like I mentioned, starts out strong with a clever futuristic sci-fi concept, but begins to falter slowly and ends up being woefully bland by the time the film reaches its climax. This goes back to the film being generic, as I will continue to mention that because that's what The Tomorrow War ultimately being, a generic sci-fi movie. Dean's script feels quite lazy and plays upon the commonly used sci-fi tropes for the feature's main concept points, including story-built moments, character developments, and overall action staging sequences. The culmination of this ends up making the film rather flimsy, especially in the second half of the feature, roughly around 50 minutes into the movie, with the back half of The Tomorrow War playing out in a very formulaic and predictable way. What doesn't help this concept is the actual dialogue written for the movie. Finding many of the character dialogue-built moments, lines to be too wooden-sounding, too broad, and a tad corny. Heck, even some of the film's speech moments, which are supposed to be impactful, come off as mostly campy. Of course, I wasn't expecting a sharp and Oscar-worthy script, dialogue. The cast in The Tomorrow War is a bit of mixed bag, which does have a bit of fair amount of recognizable acting talents attached to the project. However, most of them give rather broad character moments that come across as either generic to the genre or thinly sketched. Headlining the movie is, of course, actor Chris Pratt in the protagonist character role of Dan Forrester. Pratt, known for his roles in the MCU movies Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and Avengers: Infinity War, as well as other projects like Parks and Recreation, The Lego Movie, and Magnificent Seven. Has always been a very charismatic and well-liked actor, which comes through the various character roles he's played in his career. Slowly moving forward, recently, from a supporting player to a leading man. The Tomorrow War is one of those movies that is helmed, and designed, for the lead character, and Pratt seems to relish in that opportunity. Capable of seizing the moment whenever he's on screen with the necessary star power and gravitas. However, Pratt's charismatic bravado, something that he's known to play in his characters, isn't present in The Tomorrow War, with actor playing a more stoic character that never really feels memorable. In truth, the Dan acts more of a generic action lead character, which is equipped with the standard family issues and tactical maneuvers. Nothing about the character stands out, and Pratt's performance clearly shows that, going through the motions with little to no pizzazz. In short, from all the various known characters he's played in his career, from Andy Dwyer, Peter Quill, Emmett Brikowski, Owen Grady, Jim Preston, and Josh Faraday, Pratt's Dan Forrester in The Tomorrow War is perhaps his weakest and most unmemorable character, and that's a crying shame. Behind Pratt, the other supporting character in the movie, who has the most screen time, would be the character of Colonel Forrester. A tough and seasoned military veteran character from the future who has close ties to the character of Dan Forrester and who is played by actress Yvonne Strahovski. Personally, I do like Strahovski, who is known for her roles in Dexter, The Handmaid's Tale, and The Predator. I think she's a good actor and is capable of handling herself whenever on screen. Heck, my personally favorite role from her was Miranda Lawson from the Mass Effect trilogy video game series. That being said, while I think that she was good in the movie, the character development for her character is rather clunky and mismanaged. It's clear where the script and direction is going for with her character, but, much like the film itself, is delivered in a bland and derivate way. Strahovski does her best with what she's been given, but she can't elevate such a flimsy character. Thus, despite her attempts, Colonel Forrester comes off as stock-like sci-fi character that feels wooden and predictable. The sad part is that the rest of the cast are just as bland and woefully underdeveloped. This includes actor J.K. Simmons, Whiplash and Juno, as Dan's estranged father James Forrester. Actress Betty Gilpin, The Hunt and Isn't It Romantic, as Dan's wife Emmy Forrester, young actress Ryan Kiera Armstrong, American Horror Story and The Glorias, as Dan's young daughter Maury Forrester. Actor Sam Richardson, Mike and Dave need wedding dates and office Christmas party, as fellow drafty soldier friend to Dan named Charlie, and actor Edwin Hodge, The Purge. Election year and Mayans MC, as seasoned soldier Dorian. All of these acting talents are genuinely good and have done solid work in their past endeavors. However, most of their involvement in the Tomorrow War is, more or less, generic and broken down into several archetype characteristics, i.e., concerned wife, distant father, sweet daughter, goofy sidekick, and gruff soldier. Thus, these characters are simply cookie-cutter constructs and don't exactly quite land properly, feeling too shallow, too tonal wrong for the picture, too formulaic, or just simply not enough, and that's disappointing. Rounding out the rest of the cast are actor Keith Powers, Before I Fall and Straight Outta Compton, as Major Greenwood. Actress Mary Lynn Rajskub, 24 and Night School, as Nora. Actor Mike Mitchell, Parks and Recreation and the Birthday Boys, as Cowan. Actor Jared Shaw, The Warfighters and the Terminal List, as Tank. Actress Alexis Lauder, Watchmen and the Originals, as Diablo, and Rose Bianco, Cobra Kai and Project Power, as Rose. These particular characters are, more or less, minor supporting players in the film and kind of fill that role. Nothing of them truly stand out much, character-wise, I mean, but, again, they are minor supporting characters. Respecting background stock characters and that's all. That being said, most of them are somewhat generic and portrayed in very broad strokes. Which, to me at least, is bit problematic to a certain degree.